Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's middle of the day bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's bonus, shall we? Today's first part of the upload. I have a story that I've been nervous to tell anyone until now because I've always been afraid of people calling me a liar or that I'm fake. I'm 33 years old now, and I still live in the house where this took place to this day. It was the early 2000s, and I moved into this house when I was 18 years old. I live in North Carolina, and I've lived here pretty much all of my life. And I haven't seen many weird things, but those are stories for another day. Right now, I want to tell you about the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed in my life. As I said, I was 18 years old in the 2000s, and right around that time, I was going to the house with my mom at the time, rent to rent, until we finally saved enough money to buy our own. And we bought it, and the wooded community and mountains. And it has two-leveled house, fully furnished downstairs and upstairs. We moved there right after the two elderly couple moved out, going towards Tennessee to live there. So we moved in, we got comfortable, and everything was going fine for a while. That is, until one night my mother had to work and I was home by myself, watching some TV, eating dinner, minding my own business, and at this time I also had a very friendly cat. And he was also very loving, so I was sitting watching TV, eating dinner, enjoying myself, and that's when my cat started to raise and started to hiss. His fur was standing up, and he was hissing profusely. As he was riled up like that, it was followed by a knocking on the side door. Now I live downstairs, and I have a sliding glass door, and it leads to the backyard, so I had blackout curtains drawn. Because we live somewhat close to the neighbors, and I don't want people nosing around in my business. So after my cat was riled up and hearing the knocking come from the glass sliding door, at first I thought maybe it was the neighbors coming over, but then I realized, how could that be? It's late at night and nobody should be introducing themselves at this time. So consciously I approached the sliding door. I had a bat in my hand. Then I grabbed out of one of the boxes that I was unpacking as I approached the door. I still heard the knocking, and it started to turn into scratching on the glass like something wanted in. So without hesitation I pulled back the curtain, and right there in front of me was something I was not expecting at all. It was a dark figure on all fours. It looked too big to be a cat and too big to be a dog. Way too small to be a bear or any other large animal. The one thing or two things that I noticed were its eyes glaring right back at me. And the only thing that separated us was a thin sheet of glass. At this point I was unable to move, but I still keeping my eyes on this thing, as it was keeping its eyes on me as well. It was intensely frightening. I was terrified. This thing, this whatever this was looking at me. as I was a meal for it. We kept staring at each other intently for a few minutes, but those few minutes felt like hours to me, very intense hours as I looked deep into those red eyes. I also noticed that it was licking its jaws, knowing that it knew the only thing that separated us was the glass, and it could easily bust through to get to me. I got into a crouching stance, about to make its move, until my mother pulled up and she honked her horn to let me know she was home, and the creature heard this as well. That's when it took off into the woods. When my mother got into the house, I ran upstairs to tell her what happened, but she shrugged it off and told me it was probably just a starving stray dog. But I tried to tell her that stray dogs don't have glowing blood-red eyes. Even if the light hits them just right, a dog does not have those type of eyes. I tried to tell her that, but she kept insisting that it was just my imagination and I was being paranoid because we were in a new place. So a few days after that incident, haven't seen it since, but I know it's still out there watching me. I don't know how, I don't know why, I just have this feeling that it's still there somewhere, waiting to make its move one day. So that's why nowadays I don't go outside walking without a knife or some type of weapon and a cell phone, because I never know when I might see it again or hear a scratch on my door. Only time can tell when I will see that thing face to face once more. So take that as a warning, those who live in the woods. Make sure you have a weapon and make sure there's somebody there with you, because I don't want someone to go through the same experience I did in the same way I still am. Stay safe and stay protected. Today's second part of the upload. My name is Haley, and I've seen a demon dog. When I was younger, I would stay at my aunt and uncle's. When I was there, I slept on the couch. At the time, my cousin was sleeping on the other sofa vertically. Our heads met at the edge of a scratchy old couch. There was a big dome-shaped door frame that led to the dining room. The floor was creaky. It was an older house. I'm going to call my cousin Alice for privacy reasons. So Alice and I were both asleep. It was a normal day that night before. When I woke up, I looked at her. My heart dropped at what I saw. I felt sick and frozen. There was a big, black, fluffy dog with bright, glowing red eyes. You could see them from a mile away, piercing my soul. I was in tears, scared for mine and her life. It was not nice. It was on top of her, on her chest. It was drooling slobber out of its mouth. I screamed, and Alice, she didn't hear me for the first few times, but eventually she woke up. I was still scared. I thought, what the hell just happened? She woke up and shocked breathing, heavy as the demon ran through the dome-shaped door. She never saw it, but I know what I saw, and I swear on my grandparents' dead grave, I saw that thing. Today's third part of the upload. About 2 years ago, my best friend and I were driving home late from class. We live in a rural area and take these roads daily. We've had a few strange encounters on these roads, but this one has always stuck with me. It's pretty dark, and we were going about 40 miles an hour. I never drive faster than that on these roads because of deer or other wildlife. The road had a few houses, so it wasn't completely wooded. I'm driving along, I see some eyes and a figure, a dark figure that resembled a dog. I stop the car to let it cross the road. It runs across the road, and at the edge of the bank, it stands on its hind legs and runs like a human. My friend and I were scared because of how creepy this was. We tried to register what we saw, and decided that it possibly wasn't a dog. It may have been something else. It was too small and skinny to be a bear. All I can conclude that we saw a skinny canine creature run across the road, then stand on its hind legs and run into the woods. Today's fourth part of the upload. In 2016, I went to study abroad for a year in Munich, Germany. I went plenty of places in this time, local towns to explore and further regions of the country for hiking. I got to know a girl in my program and we started spending more time together, as we were both from Detroit area and went to the same university. I liked her at the time, 19 male, she was 20, and she liked me. And I was a bit more spontaneous with exploring, with the idea of being as random as possible. This particular day was on a December 26th, and we were at Marienplatz, a central location and a subway station in Munich, deciding on where we wanted to go and what we wanted to do that day. I played a game with a friend back in the States called Highway Game, where we would just drive, take random highways and exits randomly to get lost, and we would just have a good time talking during our time trying to get back home without any use of GPS. Anyway, why this is important is because that is what I and my friend were doing at the time, just getting lost, which is how we ended up taking the S4S Ben train towards Ebersberg. We still haven't decided which exit we planned to take, as we were just sitting on the train and just waiting for the right moment to hop off. We decided to get off at Baldham stop and begin to walk out of the station towards the village. We are in the beginning stages of talking. I've had some close moments while talking, and this just felt like another timeless talk session with her. We walked around the town and eventually found some woods to walk through that were quite dense, covered with moss on the ground and tall pines everywhere. We made the mistake of going out in the early afternoon, and after an hour train ride, arrived at around 3 p.m., and being the middle of December, the sun was dropping quite quickly, making the forest with a shadowy backdrop where I couldn't see much beyond 100 feet or so. We found a patch of thick moss void of any trees, which made for a nice spot to lie down and just stare at the cloud moving by. There wasn't any snow cover, and it was about 40 degrees, so it wasn't that cold. As we sat there, taking it all in, I felt like it was a good moment to lean up and go in for a kiss. As I get up on my elbow looking at her, I notice something moving in the background, within the shadows, just darting between the trees. It wasn't more than a few seconds later that I realized whatever was darting between the trees was now darting towards us. I didn't think much of it, since I thought it may have just been a dog. But as it got nearer, I realized that this thing was canine and huge. Before it reached us, I stood up, and it stopped within feet of us, just snarling and growling extremely loud. I dragged my friend up and told her to just start walking away. I followed her, but noticed that the canine creature walked in a circular path around us to the 3 o'clock position from where it had stopped. I began to walk with her, and as I turned around to check where it was, I saw that it was gone. We never heard it leave or saw anything run away. The only thing we did hear was a howl about 30 seconds after we left from lying on the moss, at which point we darted the hell out of those woods. As we did, we came across a gentleman walking his small dog, greeted him, and felt a sense of security. Nonetheless, we left as quickly as possible and went back to the station to catch the next train back home. Now I know, maybe thinking that it could have been a wolf, but later that evening I looked to see if there were any wolves in that area, but found that the majority of wolves were killed following the expansion of human society on the continent, with the closest known populations of wolves being near Poland, Ukraine, Russia region. It could have been a large dog, but let me tell you, I have dogs, and I've grown up around dogs, and have been attacked by a dog before. I know what I saw was not your average canine. It looked wolf-like, but it was huge. If anyone has any idea about what had happened, or is from the Munich area and knows of anything like this, please let us know. We're still freaked out about this. All I can say is that just as quickly as I noticed the canine and as it tried to attack us, it was gone, making for a supernatural experience in my book. Today's fifth encounter. A little while back I had a very creepy experience on my way to work in the morning. I normally don't believe in supernatural stuff, but I'll be damned if that was just a normal animal. On my way to work, I often use a small road through densely wooded area. It is a pretty long and pretty straight road. I left home around 4:30 in the morning and was driving, minding my own business and slowly waking up completely, when I suddenly noticed what I thought was a very large, dark gray or black dog sitting next to the road. As it was still dark, I really couldn't make out any full detail, so I slowed down in case it started to run across the road. But when I got closer and the headlights captured it in full, it just stood up and calmly retreated into the bushes next to the road. But as soon as it stood up, it was very clear that this was no normal dog. It was huge, bear-sized, and at least, or even bigger. I'd say shorter hind legs, very muscular front, a weird, long snout and pointed ears, and a bushy tail. It walked almost like some sort of hyena, but always on all fours. Big predators are very rare in this area, and if there is a sighting about every 2 or 3 years, it is only some lone wolves or very, very rarely a bear wandering through. This stretch of road has always given me the creeps, but now the fear has a face. One thing I had noticed the last few days was that there were no animals around. Normally there were always some deer, some fox, or if I get lucky, I'll even see a badger, but this week, none, not even a bird. There had also been some reports of missing livestock in the area. 2 sheep went missing last week, and yesterday a horse was lost. It was later found brutally ripped apart and partially consumed. I don't know if the unknown canine creature is responsible for this, but I highly suspect it to be. The last bit of today's upload is going to be for those people who honestly view Sasquatch as a lovable furry giant. Well, there has been attacks on humans before, and I'm going to share a couple with you right now. Today's sixth part of the upload. In 1965, news outlets around the United States reported on a very strange story from Monroe County, Michigan. A massive hairy creature had reportedly attacked a 17-year-old, Christina Van Acker, as she and her mother, Ruth Owen, sat in a car. The story has, of course, faded from the memory of the years. It remains an interesting case, however, if, for no other reason, it claims actual physical contact between a human and the ever-elusive Bigfoot. The Van Acker Bigfoot encounter occurred on the evening of August 13th, when Van Acker was driving herself and her mother toward their home. Neither of the people in the car apparently saw anything at first. They just felt a bump. When Van Acker stopped the car, she was immediately grabbed by, as what Ruth Owen states, a huge hairy hand. The Bigfoot creature was about 7 feet tall with shaggy black hair, weighing in at an estimated 400 pounds, smelled moldy and growled like a mad dog. The hairy beast grabbed Van Acker by the hair and slammed her head into the car door. Van Acker passed out. Ruth Owens, seeing that there was nothing she could do, ran from the car to get help. Now, real quick, this was in a lot of newspapers back then. I actually asked my dad if he remembered anything about it, and he did. He was about 17 at the time, And a couple of things that get me is that they call it the elusive Bigfoot. They call this creature a Bigfoot. Yet, it happened in Michigan, in a very, very densely wooded area. And this creature growled like a mad dog. There's no mention of any of these in any of these news stories stating what the creature looked like. So it could have either been a Sasquatch or a Dogman. But nonetheless, the papers call it a Sasquatch, so that's what we'll go as. But it could have been a Dogman. Today's seventh part of the upload. We rarely hear of people being killed by Sasquatch, but this second-hand account of an event in Bishop, California is worth a note. Reported by the late Richard Grumley, a researcher for the CBFU, the California Bigfoot Organization. He was talking with a bulldozer operator in 1981 who had also hunted in the area, and he brought up the subject of Bigfoot. Gromley reported that the man told him a story from the mid-70s in which he had been poaching in the area with permission from the Forestry Service in a gated area near Bishop in an area known as 4 Points. He drove over a bluff in his pickup truck only to find the Department of Interior and Bureau of Land Management officers there. According to the man, they grabbed him, confiscated his gun, and interrogated him for 7 to 8 hours about why he was there. The man was finally let off the hook when local forestry officials identified him as a friend. But the DOI and the BLM officers warned him never to return the area. But in the course of the interrogation, the man found out that a Sasquatch had entered a campground there, ransacked the area, turning over a large, heavy dumpster and killing several people. But no clues about the incident were reported to have been found. This story may have disappeared into obscurity until a young student investigating Bigfoot accounts was doing some research in Bishop in 1989, 1990. He reported that he met a police officer there who had been on a local police force in the 70s when the incident had taken place. He told the student that the story had been the talk of the force at the time, but they had all been under strict orders not to breathe a word about it or the deaths to anyone. Grumley also reported that the hunter had told him the officers had been very heavily armed and the very strong smell lingered in the air while he was being interrogated. He also stated there are no brown bears in California, and a black bear would have been incapable of turning over a full-size dumpster. Later in years, Ray Crow reported in his journal track record that he believed the incident, due to the fatalities and odd nature of the case, had probably been reported by the officers as a bear attack, basically sweeping it under the rug. Today's final part of the upload. In 1902, in Chesterfield, Ohio, a group of ice skaters were assaulted by a hairy, 8-foot monster carrying a wooden stick. It is unknown how the people escaped, as the Bigfoot is known for his skating as well as his puck handling skills. In Thomas Flat, Oregon, a Bigfoot supposedly scared off the town's inhabitants. Back in the 1800s, one man stayed and was later found dead, apparently having been smashed with a large rock. In 1924, a group of miners near Mount St. Helens, Washington, shot a Bigfoot, only to have its buddies relentlessly attack their cabin with rocks and debris through the following night. Apparently, beef jerky or no, there was really no messing with Sasquatch. Also in 1924, a Canadian named Albert Olsman claims he was kidnapped by Bigfoot and taken back to the creature's family. After 6 days, he fired his rifle in the air and made his escape. Why he waited 6 days is anyone's guess. Teddy Roosevelt himself the president, reported, knew a man who claimed his trapping partner was killed by a Bigfoot somewhere deep in the woods. It may have been a tall tale, but it seems Teddy believed it. Teddy Roosevelt's Bigfoot story is one of the most intriguing of Bigfoot lore. In the 1970s, a Bigfoot allegedly tore up a California campground and killed several people. This was kept quiet by the authorities until the story came out in a newsletter in the late 90s.
Well, there you have it, folks. Today's middle of the day bonus. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that keeps the channel growing and going, and honestly what gives people a chance to share their experiences and theories judgment-free, simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.